Business news from the Capital Region. This is Washington Business Report with ABC7 national correspondent Rebecca Cooper.
Welcome to your fresh look at business and finance in the Washington region. Coming up on today's show, we've got one of Washington's most successful investors here to talk about the economic outlook in Washington and beyond, and a top analyst who argues one key thing needs to change, where the D.C. region will be in real trouble when it comes to future growth. In our small business spotlight, clean energy and how communities are banding together to get a good deal. Plus our roundtable this week, the Washington housing market. We have one of the region's top names in real estate and one of the top lenders here to fill us in on what's trending and whether now is a good time for you to be a buyer or a seller in the current market. But first, let's take a closer look at the economy overall, as investors this week kept a wary eye on what's happening in Iraq. The rising gas prices and other concerns about conflict there balanced out this week thanks to good news from the Fed. The nation's central bank promised to keep short-term interest rates low and said it sees signs of improvement in the U.S. job market and overall economy. So what do some of the smartest minds in Washington think? We invited two of them here today. Joining us, investor and entrepreneur Mark Ein, founder and CEO of Venture House Group and owner of the Washington Kastles, and Dave Oberting, executive director and chairman of Economic Growth DC, a nonprofit focused on ways to grow the Washington economy. Gentlemen, thanks you both for joining us. Mark, first, congratulations to you. This week you were named one of the entrepreneurs of the year in Washington.
Thanks. Yeah, that was a great honor for our whole team.
It was kudos because it was for the Kastles, and we're going to talk about the Kastles in a bit. But Dave, I want to start with you because you argue that if DC were a country, we'd be in a recession right now based on the numbers. What numbers were you looking at, and why did you come to that conclusion?
Well, just last week, the Bureau of Economic Analysis released their state-level GDP figures, which add up all of the economic activity in a particular jurisdiction. And the sad reality is the DC's economy actually contracted by about $520 million in 2013.
And if you have 2 quarters back-to-back of recession, of contraction,
that is the technical definition of a recession.
And so your argument is that
technically we're in one.
We're in a recession in D.C. And what do you attribute that to? You said it can't simply be blamed on the government shutdown, that's one factor.
I think you have the shutdown. I think you have the sequester, which also plays a bit of a role. But we have what I think has been a deteriorating business climate here in the last 12 to 18 months. There have been several bills proposed and they're currently being negotiated that I think just have a very negative impact on the way that business owners and managers feel about doing business in the district.
Mark, you're a business owner and manager in the district. Before we get to some of the problems, are there any bright spots there? What do you see that's good about doing business in the district?
Well, there actually are a lot of bright spots. I agree with some of the factors that Dave raised that are causing some headwinds, but we also have tailwinds. 1,000 new people are moving into the district every month. Parts of our city that you would never imagine would see development are seeing incredible development. The housing market is on fire. Developments are selling out fast. So I think it's a little bit a tale of two cities. You've got for sure some things that are impeding growth, but DC is one of the hottest cities in America right now, and people want to be here. We need to find an engine to replace the federal government, and we need to be competitive, not just with surrounding jurisdictions, but other places in the country. And I think if we do that, I actually think the future is quite bright. We just got to make sure we do that.
And Dave, the point you make is that that is the most important thing we need to change, that we are overly reliant on the federal government. 35% of the DC economy comes from government spending. That compares to the average 11% overall in the rest of the country.
Exactly. The average around the country is 11%. We are dependent upon government spending.
But that helped us during the recession, so many said.
It did. It made us bulletproof in comparison with the rest of the country. But now that the spending has declined, the stimulus spending is over with, we're still stuck at this 35% dependency level, and we need to be able to diversify our economy away from that.
Do you think we should be focusing on one particular sector? Should we be the new Silicon Valley? Where should we be focusing our growth?
We don't have any real estate to have a manufacturing industry, and so that's not on the table. And so I think technology is the area, because it's based on intellectual property, I think technology is the area that we should really be focused on.
And we have seen, Mark, some really promising developments in startups. You're an investor who has always chosen wisely when it comes to the technology market. Do you see DC as a viable alternative to some of the cities that have already made their claim on tech industry?
Well, there will only ever be one Silicon Valley. It's hard to replicate. It took, generations to get to where it is, but there are promising things here. And
But Northern Virginia did it to some extent and then paid the consequences.
Yeah, I think that they benefited from a lot. And I think technology is one. I actually prefer to think more entrepreneurially, because there's businesses other than tech that can be entrepreneurial businesses. There's education businesses that may rely somewhat on technology but are broader than that. There are other things that I think businesses in Washington can do other than just technology. But there's two things. We need to encourage entrepreneurial development. When the companies are here and grow, we need to keep them here. That's been the really big issue that people don't appreciate, is some of the greatest companies in this region started in Washington, moved out. Nextel, MCI, Corporate Executive Board, Cvent, they all started in Washington. As soon as they were big and successful, they moved away. So we need to retain them. And then I actually do think we shouldn't lose hope to attract a major company here at some point. I know we always think it's not going to happen, but in the rest of the world, people view Washington D.C. as the capital of the United States. And I think there are certain companies that if we really put our minds to it, we could actually attract them here into the district.
Now, Dave, some things were never really going to be overcome, and it's a good thing. Real estate's always going to be expensive in this city, for example. But you argue when it comes to wage hikes, when it comes to taxes, D.C. can and should do better. You say we're doing better on taxes, but tell us overall what you're thinking.
Well, I think as a result of the Tax Revision Commission that Mark sat on and the recommendations that they made and the recommendations that were adopted by Chairman Mendelson, I think we made great strides as it relates to taxes. But we still keep shooting ourselves in the foot with legislation or regulation that just impedes growth, and we just need to get better at that.
And you've been a good voice for that. Well, Mark, I want to talk to you about why you won Entrepreneur of the Year. Is for the Washington Kastles tennis team. You started that because of your love of tennis, and you believed in the whole idea of team tennis, but you didn't really think it was going to be a successful business venture. Now you've got several championships, and you're selling tickets. The business community loves to go. Tell us about the season coming up and how things are going.
Yeah, well, we're really excited. The season starts on July 9th. We have 7 matches over those 3 weeks. As you said, it's been a labor of love. I really did it as a way to give back to the community and use it as a platform to just do good things. And whether it's just families coming, having a great time, giving businesses a reason to bring their employees down, or do a lot for kids who wouldn't have the kind of opportunities we provide, that's really what it's been about. And
you got a new stadium planned.
We got a new stadium at GW. We're playing at the Smith Center at 22nd and G. We're really excited about that. We're going to have an outdoor fan festival before the match and then come indoors and play. It's something I think just everyone has a good time. Everyone loves coming, and hopefully they'll come out again.
I have to say, I've been many times. It's a lot of fun, and it really has the backing of a wide array of the business community and the overall community. So we look forward to it. Some big players in the lineup this year.
Yes.
Mark Ein, Dave Overton, thanks so much for joining us on Washington Business Report. We like hearing from the both of you. Well, stay with us. Coming up next, did you know that D.C. is one of only 16 places in the U.S. where residents can choose whether their monthly utility bill is supporting clean energy or fossil fuels? We'll meet the man who negotiates better deals for cleaner energy. Coming up next.
Oh, yeah.